The millionaire laughed so loudly the marble walls of the private clinic echoed with it. "Heal me for $1 million? He mocked, leaning back in his leather chair. "Kid, you can't heal anything." Across from him stood a quiet black boy, maybe 12, maybe 13, barely tall enough to see over the desk. But his eyes, they didn't flinch. "Give me your hand," the boy whispered. The room fell still. Doctors stopped. Nurses watched. Even the millionaire's smirk trembled for a second. The boy placed one hand near the man's wrist, just hovering, and in 3 silent seconds, the millionaire's face drained of color, because the pain he'd carried for years, pain no doctor could diagnose, suddenly vanished. And that was only the beginning. His name was Elijah Brooks, a boy most people overlooked the moment. They saw his worn shoes and second-hand hoodie. He lived with his grandmother in a cramped apartment near the river. Life hadn't given him much, but it had given him something rare, a gift he didn't understand, a gift others feared. Since the age of 7, Elijah could feel people's pain, not emotionally, physically. As if invisible cords connected him to wounds no one could see. He healed a classmate's migraine once just by touching her temple. His teacher fainted when it happened. Word spread. Rumors followed. Some called him a miracle. Others called him cursed. One night, Elijah overheard his grandmother crying, begging God to protect the child from a world that hunts what it is, doesn't understand. But fate doesn't wait for permission, because miles away, a powerful man, a billionaire crippled by a mysterious illness, was growing desperate. His empire was slipping through his fingers, his body weakening by the day. And when a frightened intern whispered about a strange boy who fixes people, the millionaire laughed, then demanded Elijah be brought to him at any cost. What Elijah didn't know was that the man before him, Garrison Hale, owner of Heltech Industries, was on the verge of losing a $4.2 billion merger. His illness threatened everything. His company, his power, his pride. If he couldn't stand at the negotiation table tomorrow, his empire would collapse. And now, a child held the key to survival before being dragged into Hale's glass tower. Elijah had spent the morning doing what he always did, helping quietly. He'd stopped to help an old man struggling with groceries, his hands trembling, his back stiff. Elijah placed one hand near the man's spine, and within seconds, the old man straightened, eyes widening in disbelief. "Boy, what did you just do?" Elijah only smiled. "I just listened. Your body was tired." Further down the street, a stray dog whimpered, limping on its hind leg. Elijah knelt, barely touched the air above the injury, and the dog stood, tail wagging. People watched, whispered, some recorded. Some crossed the street, frightened of what they didn't understand. "Grandma always said," Elijah murmured, "healing isn't noise. Healing is listening." He didn't know that a black SUV was watching him the entire time, and that the moment he helped the dog walk again, a security agent whispered, "Found him." The elevator ride to Hale's penthouse clinic felt like being swallowed whole. Elijah stood between 2 armed guards, silent, tense, towering over him. The air smelled like sanitizer and money. Behind closed doors, doctors were arguing. "His condition is accelerating. We've run every scan, nothing shows up. If he collapses tomorrow, the board will remove him." Garrison Hale's voice roared over theirs. "Then fix me." Silence. A doctor whispered, shaking theirs. "The boy, sir." The one who Hale waved a hand. "Bring him." And now, as Elijah stepped into the circular white room filled with machines and frightened experts, the billionaire smirked nervously. "All right, kid," he said. "Show me this healing trick of yours." He didn't know Elijah. Wasn't there to perform, he was there for a truth that would break his world in half. The hallway lights flickered as the millionaire was escorted into the clinic's private wing. Nurses whispered. Security stiffened. Meanwhile, the black boy stood quietly in the doorway, watching every movement, every measured breath. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't unsure. He was simply waiting for the moment destiny would finally call his name. The hospital doors slid open, and in stormed Dr. Hawthorne. The millionaire's personal physician, face twisted with disbelief, his eyes locked on the boy. "This is nonsense," he barked. "A child cannot do what trained specialists fail to do." But the millionaire raised a trembling hand. "Then explain why my pain is gone." The room fell silent. The threat had arrived. The room fell into a stunned, unnatural silence, the kind that settles just before a miracle or a disaster. The millionaire, Grant Holloway, still sat frozen in his leather chair, fingers gripping the armrest, eyes locked on the small boy standing before him, a boy who looked too ordinary to hold any power, too gentle to hold any threat, too young to command the kind of fear now spreading through the room like slow-moving smoke. Tay didn't move, didn't blink, didn't hurry. He simply stepped closer, one soft footstep at a time. Grant swallowed hard, his smirk gone, confidence evaporating into a trembling exhale. "What are you doing?" he muttered. Tay didn't answer. Instead, he raised one small hand, steady, calm, deliberate, and placed it lightly on Grant's wrist. A touch so quiet it shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. Grant gasped a sharp, involuntary sound, as if the boy's fingers were pressing on a live current instead of skin. The executives watching jumped. The assistants stepped back. One doctor whispered, "Impossible." Because the millionaire's wrist, the same wrist twisted from a polo accident 6 months ago, the same wrist doctors said would never regain full movement, was loosening beneath the boy's touch. Tay's eyes closed softly. He breathed in once, slow, deep, almost musical, and Grant felt something warm, something spreading, something that shouldn't have been real. His pulse slowed. His heartbeat steadied. His fingers stiffed for half a year, began to relax. Tay's voice came out barely above a whisper. "It's not your bones. It's your fear holding your body hostage." A shiver ran down Grant's spine. The boy opened his eyes again, dark, calm, unblinking, like someone who'd seen more truth than the adults around him ever had. Then he moved his hand slightly, a small shift, a gentle rotation. There was a soft crack, a release, a breath. Grant's eyes widened. He rotated his wrist once, twice. No pain. No pain. He stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. Rotated again. Flexed his fingers. Pressed his palm against the table. Nothing hurt. The impossible was happening in real time. Billionaires. 6-month injury gone in seconds. Gasps erupted. 2 assistants cried. One of the investors dropped his phone. Grant staggered backward, shaking his head as if trying to force logic into a moment that refused to follow any rules. No. This can't. Tay stepped back, expression unchanged. He wasn't proud, wasn't excited, wasn't surprised. He looked almost tired, as if miracles weren't miracles to him, just things. Then he said quietly, "You didn't need $1 million. You just needed someone who could feel what you've been hiding." Grant's mouth fell open. No words came, only breath, heavy and shaking. Because in that moment, he understood something that terrified him more than all the pain he'd endured. This boy wasn't guessing. He was seeing. Not physically. Not medically. Not in any way that textbooks or science could explain. He was sensing the truth behind the symptoms. Like he could reach into the places no machine could read, no doctor could touch, no billionaire could buy. And Grant knew it. Everyone knew it. A single touch from a child had undone months of surgeries, therapies, treatments, and fear. A single moment had rewritten everything they believed about power, wealth, and healing. Tay lowered his hand, took one quiet step back, and whispered, "You're not broken. You were just scared to let yourself heal." Grant stared at him, trembling. Then for the first time in his adult life, he felt small. Not because he was weak, but because he'd finally met someone whose strength did not come from money, status, or control. It came from something deeper, something purer, something unexplainable. And as the room struggled to understand what they'd just witnessed, Tay simply turned away, as if the miracle he'd just performed was nothing more than a child tidying up a mess grown-ups had made and didn't know how to fix. The ballroom went silent the moment Elijah placed his hands on the millionaire's wrist. Reporters leaned forward. Bodyguards shifted nervously. And Victor hailed the man who mocked an entire community just minutes earlier, suddenly lost his arrogant smile. Elijah didn't close his eyes. He didn't chant. He didn't pretend. He simply listened to the pulse, to the tremor, to the microspasms. Victor had been hiding under expensive suits and staged charisma. Victor's voice cracked. "What? What are you doing?" Elijah spoke softly, loud enough for the room. It's quiet enough to pierce the man's pride. "You're hurting because your body is fighting you, not your bones. Your breath." A murmur rolled through the crowd. Elijah pressed 2 fingers beneath Victor's ribcage, a simple pressure point, one his late mother used to use when he couldn't sleep as a child. Victor gasped, not in pain, but because something inside him suddenly shifted. Like a locked door opening, his shaking stopped. His breath steadied. The twitch in his hand gone. Cameras erupted in flashes. Gasps turned into stunned disbelief. "What? What did you just do?" Victor whispered, as if afraid of the answer. Elijah stepped back. "You wanted healing," he said, "but you thought it had to come from someone like you." Victor swallowed hard, realizing for the first time he had underestimated the very person who just changed his fate in front of the world. The room shifted. The millionaire's laughter, once loud and arrogant, faded into something darker, a sneer that carried centuries of entitlement. He stepped toward Malik, towering over him. "So this is the miracle boy everyone keeps whispering about." His tone dripped with mockery. "Kid, you don't heal people. You get lucky. Once." Malik's hands trembled, but not from fear, from restraint. The millionaire jabbed a finger toward Malik's chest. "I offered a joke bounty. 1 million. Do something again. Go on. Fix my pain." "What's wrong? Your little trick run out?" Gasps filled the room. Even the cameras recording the charity event caught the shift, the electricity in the air, the crackling tension ready to snap. Malik's mother stepped forward. "Sir, please." But he cut her off. "Oh, don't start." His voice rose. "You people always play the victim. I'm giving the boy a chance. That's generosity." A cold silence spread, and then a voice from the back. "Enough." Heads turned as James Porter, the billionaire philanthropist and silent sponsor of the event, stepped out from the shadows. His presence alone felt like a wall being built. "Richard," James said calmly, "you're humiliating yourself." Richard scoffed. "Humiliating? I'm exposing this scam." James stepped closer, eyes locked onto him. "You're exposing your ignorance." Cameras swung toward them. The livestream chat exploded. Richard squared his shoulders. "Since when did you defend street magicians?" James stopped inches from him. "When the magician is a 10-year-old boy you're bullying for entertainment?" A murmur rolled through the crowd. Richard tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked, not from humor, from being challenged by someone he wasn't used to being challenged by. Double quotes. "Oh, come on. He can try again. If he's real, he'll do it. If not," Malik's voice cut through the air, "stop talking about me. Like I'm a test." The room froze. Even Richard blinked. Malik took one small step forward. "I didn't heal you for money. I didn't touch you to prove anything. I helped you because you were hurting. That's it." James nodded softly, almost proud. But Richard, he wasn't finished. He grabbed Malik's wrist too tightly. Malik winced. "Then do IT again," Richard roared. "Or admit you're a fraud." James moved instantly. He seized Richard's arm, prying it away from the boy with controlled force. "You put another hand on him," James whispered, "and you won't just lose this event. You'll lose everything else too." Richard stared at him, breathing hard, chest rising with rage and confusion. The moment cracked. The world was watching. The cameras were rolling, and the humiliation Richard intended to inflict on Malik was now circling back toward him like a boomerang, and he could feel it deep, burning, desperate. The downfall had begun. The room fell into a stunned silence. As Ethan opened the door to the old storage office behind the diner, the walls were lined with dusty files, rusted phones, and a flickering bulb that hummed like a trapped hornet. Patricia followed him inside, her expensive heels clicking with irritation. Maya stayed by the doorway, torn between fear and curiosity. Ethan placed the flash drive on the table, but this time there was no tremor in his hands. He looked taller, steadier, like a man stepping back into the skin he had once shed. "You really want to know what happened to your company?" he asked Patricia quietly. She crossed her arms. "I already know." "You sabotaged it," Ethan almost laughed. "Is that the lie you told the board, or the lie you told yourself?" He tapped the flash drive once. A soft, echoing tick. "This has every transaction you moved offshore, every file you altered, every signature you forged, and every message you deleted." Patricia went pale. "That's impossible." Ethan looked at her with a calmness that cut deeper than anger ever could. "I built that company. I built its firewalls. I built its internal auditing system. And you never noticed the one backup server I kept access to." Patricia stumbled back a step. You planned this?" "No." Ethan shook his head slowly. "You planned your own downfall. I just kept the receipts." Maya held her breath. In that moment, the man she'd fed a free meal wasn't a stranger at rock bottom. He was a giant who had simply crouched for a while. Patricia lunged toward the flash drive, but Ethan slid it off the table, pocketing it with effortless calm. "You're going to walk out of this diner," he said. "And you're going to pretend you never saw me," Patricia hissed. "You can't threaten me. I'll crush you." Ethan took one step forward. His voice dropped, quiet, precise, lethal. "Patricia, I'm not threatening you. I'm ending the game." She froze, because the look in his eyes said he already had. Outside, the rain stopped, as if even the storm was holding its breath for what would happen next. The crowd around the boy thickened, phones lifted, flashes blinking, a storm of whispers turning into a roar. Is this real? Did he actually fix him? Get this on camera. The millionaire staggered back, gripping the railing, his pride shattering faster than his disbelief. A live stream had already begun, thousands joining, then tens of thousands. The moment spreading like wildfire, and through the chaos, James, the boy's quiet uncle, stepped forward with calm power. He placed a steady hand on the millionaire's shoulder. "You tested him," James said softly. "Now let us test you." The man swallowed hard. "What? What do you want?" James nodded toward the trembling crowd. "Move this outside. Let the world see the truth you tried to laugh at." The millionaire froze, because the world was already watching. The hospital conference room fell into an eerie, electric silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence right before a storm reveals its true. Color Dr. Halston stood frozen at the head of the table, his hands gripping the edge so tightly his knuckles bleached white. What Malek, this quiet black boy everyone had underestimated, had just done in front of 17 medical professionals defied every recorded case in their system. But Malik wasn't done. He stepped forward, placing the folder gently on the table, a worn binder held together by tape, hope, and the kind of determination only a child living in pain could build. "Before you say it was luck," he whispered. "Look." He opened the binder. Dozens of pages, drawings, diagrams, handwritten notes in the looping. Messy lettering of a child, but the content was frighteningly advanced. Pressure points, neural flow maps, joint alignments, energy release patterns, case studies, observations, every page time-stamped, every note cross-referenced. Malik looked up, eyes burning with something the room had never seen. Conviction. I've been helping people since I was 6, he said softly. My mom, she hurt all the time. Nobody could help her. So I learned how. The millionaire, now speechless, leaned back in his chair, the mocking grin long gone. Malik flipped to a page labeled Joint Interference Collapse, -19 cases. Pictures before and after. Descriptions, results. He turned another page. Spinal nerve compression, 42 cases. Then another. Migraine reset technique, -58 cases. Dr. Halston's face drained of color. This can't be real. But Malik kept going. It works. My hands. They feel what's stuck inside people. I don't force anything. I just tell the body where to go, the millionaire whispered. But how did you learn all this? Who taught you? Malik shook his head. No one. He placed his hands on the table. Small. Gentle hands. The same hands that moments ago healed a shoulder worth more in insurance claims than most people made in a decade. A nurse whispered, child prodigy. Another murmured, neurosomatic intuition. Another gasped, this is beyond chiropractic. This is diagnostic instinct. Malik lowered his voice. You laughed at me when I said I could help you for $1 million. He looked directly at the millionaire. I didn't mean money. I meant value. People don't listen unless you give them a number that scares them. The room went still. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a stack of letters, printed complaints. Ignored reports, dismissed diagnostic files, cases where doctors told patients, nothing is wrong. Your pain is psychological. It's in your head. But Malik had marked each one with red ink. Found blockage, fixed, patient recovered, pattern after pattern. After pattern, Dr. Halston collapsed into his chair. Telling me you've solved conditions specialists misdiagnosed for years? Malik nodded quietly. I don't solve the pain. I remind the body how to fix itself. The millionaire's eyes glistened. Moments ago, he mocked a child. Now he was witnessing something the medical world would call impossible. But Malik looked at him with disarming innocence. You said no one could heal you. But your body wasn't broken. Your doctor just didn't know how to listen. He turned the binder around, facing the room. This is the truth, he said. Not magic, not luck. Just patterns. That grown-up stopped looking for. Silence settled over the private clinic like a tightening fist. The millionaire, Donovan Price, stood trembling, the same man who had mocked, laughed, taunted, now staring at the little boy as if seeing a miracle unfold, cell by cell. Yalan stepped back, hands lowering slowly, as if he himself wasn't sure how the world had just shifted under their feet. WH, what did you do to me? Donovan stammered. His voice cracked. His arrogance cracked. Everything cracked. Jalen's mother stepped in, her voice calm but firm. He didn't do anything to you. He helped you understand your own pain. Something money never taught you. No, you don't understand. I felt something I haven't felt in years. He pressed his fingers to his lower back, twisting, bending, testing. For the first time in a decade, the pain didn't stab back. His personal doctor, who'd been silently observing from the side, moved forward. Wide-eyed Mr. Price, this is impossible. You had nerve scarring? Damage we've treated for years. Nothing ever changed. But now Donovan turned sharply. I know nothing ever changed. He snapped. Then softer, but something just did. Yalan looked down shyly. I just listened, he murmured. My grandma used to say, every body has a language. Most adults forget how to hear it. Donovan swallowed hard. He had spent millions on specialists, clinics, private treatments. But a child, a quiet, gentle, soft-spoken child, did in seconds what money had failed to buy. The shift inside Donovan wasn't just physical. It was ego, cracking open. It was pride, unraveling thread by thread. He stared at Yalan again, but this time with something new. Reverence. What you did. It's worth more than $1 million, Donovan whispered. Jalen's mother pulled her son behind her. He's not for sale. Donovan shook his head quickly. No, I didn't mean that. He exhaled deeply. I meant, I've been blind to what real value looks like. The air in the room vibrated with unspoken truth. This wasn't healing. This was awakening. The room fell silent. The kind of silence that swallows sound and turns breath into thunder. Mr. Harrington, the billionaire who mocked a child, who laughed at pain, who treated suffering like a game, now stood trembling. And across from him, not a doctor, not a world-class specialist, not a therapist charging thousands an hour, but a 12-year-old boy with steady hands and eyes that looked straight into the soul, Elijah, the boy. Harrington had dismissed as a joke. The boy he'd thrown $1 million challenge at, thinking it was impossible. Now the impossible was standing right in front of him. Harrington opened his mouth to speak, but the words broke apart in his throat. His voice wasn't the voice of a billionaire anymore, not commanding, not confident, not superior. It was the voice of a man. Afraid? What? What did you do to me? He whispered. Elijah didn't flinch. I didn't heal you, he said softly. You healed yourself. I just showed your body where the pain was hiding, the crowd murmured. Phones recorded. Security froze. No one had ever spoken to Harrington like this. No one had ever dared. The billionaire stepped back, wobbling as if the building itself had shifted beneath him. You're coming with me, he stuttered. I'll pay you. I'll fund whatever you want. Elijah raised a hand, a small gesture, but it shut Harrington up instantly. I don't want your money, Elijah said, and I'm not your miracle machine. Harrington's face twisted, anger, desperation, disbelief, all fighting for control. What do you want then? He demanded. Elijah leaned forward, voice calm, tone unshakable. I want you to apologize. The words hit harder than any insult. Harrington blinked. Apologize? To you. Elijah shook his head. To my mother. Gasps erupted around the room. Elijah stepped aside, and there she was, his mother. Standing tall, standing proud, the woman Harrington had insulted, laughed at, dismissed as uneducated. Now, staring him down with the power of a storm, Harrington felt the weight of every secret sin. Every cruel comment, every moment he had used wealth as a weapon. He tried to speak, but this time, shame smothered the words. He wasn't the hunter anymore. He was the one on trial, and everyone watching knew. The power in the room had officially changed sides. The room fell into a kind of silence that didn't feel natural, a silence that waited. The millionaire. Donovan Hale sat frozen on the medical bed, his mocking smile now wiped clean, replaced by something he wasn't used to wearing. Fear. The black boy. Malik still stood in front of him, his small hand hovering just inches from Donovan's chest, right where the pain had been burning for years. Right where no doctor had ever been able to fix him. His mother. Aisha stood behind him, hands shaking, breath held. Her eyes begging her son not to go too far, not to reveal everything. But it was too late. The glow had already happened. Subtle, soft, impossible. The moment Malik touched Donovan's chest. The man's entire body had arched in shock, and the monitors beside the bed danced with readings the medical team had never seen before. Donovan swallowed hard. His voice cracked. What did you do to me? Malik took a step back, lowering his hand. I didn't hurt you, he said gently. You were hurting yourself. The doctors stared at the readouts, heart rhythms correcting, pressure stabilizing, oxygen levels rising in seconds. It defied every law they knew. The oldest doctor whispered, That's not possible. Aisha finally found her voice. We need to go now. She grabbed Malik's wrist, pulling him toward the exit. But Donovan slammed his palm on the bed railing. Wait. The word carried authority. The kind that could move governments, shake industries, destroy lives with a signature, but now it trembled. Boy, he said slowly, carefully, almost respectfully. What are you? Malik didn't answer. His eyes lowered, as if ashamed of the very gift that had just saved him. The doctor scrambled. Papers rustling, machines beeping, nurses whispering like frightened birds. One finally said what they were all thinking. He just reversed a chronic condition in under 10 seconds. Donovan exhaled sharply. His arrogance shattered, his ego crushed under the weight of the miracle inside him. "Your mother told me you needed money," said, voice low, controlled. $1 million was a joke. "But now, you'll get any amount you want. Just name your price." Aisha stiffened. "Sir, we're not for sale." Donovan blinked, stunned. People always sold themselves to him. Always. But not this woman. Not her son. He looked at Malik again, but this time not like a tool, a spectacle, circus act. He looked at him the way a drowning man looks at air. "Just tell me," Donovan murmured. "Is what you did permanent?" Malik nodded softly. "If you don't go back to the same life that broke your heart..." Donovan froze. The words hit him deeper than any diagnosis ever had. "What do you mean?" "You hurt people," Malik whispered. "And hurting people hurts you too." The room fell into stunned stillness. Donovan Hale, the man whose cruelty was legend, whose enemies filled entire industries, whose decisions had ruined lives, looked like he'd been stripped bare. A child, a boy half his height, had just diagnosed his soul better than any doctor had diagnosed his body. Aisha tugged Malik again. "We're leaving." But Donovan spoke once more, this time not as a billionaire, not as a patient, not as a man who believed the world bowed to his name, but as someone broken, and finally aware of it. "Please," he whispered, "don't go." And that plea from a man who never begged changed the entire room. The miracle had just begun, but the consequences were about to shake the world. The press conference room exploded into flashes the moment Victor Langston, the billionaire who once mocked a child, stepped onto the stage with 2 trembling security guards behind him. But the person the world was waiting for was the boy Elijah, 12 years old. Quiet, unassuming, and now it's the most talked about name across every news channel on earth. Victor steadied himself at the podium, gripping its edges as if they were the last pieces of his dignity left. He cleared his throat. "I want to clarify the events of yesterday." A reporter fired the first question like a bullet. "Is it true that a child touched your spine and reversed the chronic nerve collapse your surgeons couldn't fix?" Victor's jaw tightened. He glanced over at Elijah standing beside his mother in the front row. Maya held her son close, calm, protective, proud. Victor swallowed. "Yes," he admitted. 100 shutters clicked at once, and another journalist shouted, "Did you truly offer the boy $1 million to heal you as a joke?" Victor's face flushed crimson. Elijah lowered his eyes. He didn't want this attention. He only wanted to help the man who was crying silently on the park bench hours earlier. He wasn't supposed to hear that. Victor muttered, his voice cracking. Maya's voice rose from the crowd, gentle, but resolute. "He heard you because you wanted to be heard," she said. "You wanted to feel powerful." Silence slammed across the room. Victor exhaled shakily. It was the first moment he truly looked human, exposed, fragile, small. "Yesterday," he continued, "I mocked a child. And he saved me anyway." Some reporters lowered their cameras, stunned. Others leaned forward, hungry for the unraveling. Victor tried to continue, but his voice betrayed him. "You don't understand," he said, gripping the podium harder. "The surgeons said I'd never walk properly again. The pain was constant. It ruled every hour of my life." Lifted his hands, shaking. "I spent millions trying to fix myself. And this boy, this kid, figured out what every expert missed." Flashbulbs blasted like lightning. Elijah stepped forward, his voice soft, steady. "I didn't heal you," he said. "Your bone wasn't broken, your nerve was stuck. I only helped it release." His innocence stunned the room. Maya placed a hand on his shoulder. She could feel his heart pounding. The billionaire swallowed again. "Your son is?" "Extraordinary." Maya didn't smile. "Not yet." The reporters continued firing questions. "Will you pay the $1 million?" What happens now? Are you offering Elijah a job? Is this child a prodigy? Should the medical board evaluate him? Victor raised a hand. The room fell silent. I'm not here to buy this child, he said. And I'm certainly not here to own him. He turned to Elijah. I'm here to apologize. The world held its breath. Victor got down from the podium. And to the shock of everyone, the billionaire dropped to one knee in front of a 12-year-old boy. I am sorry for humiliating you, he said. I'm sorry for thinking your kindness was meaningless. I'm sorry for seeing your skin, your clothes, your age, before I saw your brilliance. Maya's eyes filled. Elijah blinked quickly, overwhelmed. He didn't speak, not yet. Victor stood again slowly, painfully, humbly, and he continued. Turning to the cameras, I am stepping down as CEO of Langston Biotech, effective immediately. Gasps, shouts. Reporters jumped to their feet. His security guards exchanged stunned looks. Victor wasn't finished. I am transferring $5 million, not one, to a new foundation under Maya Johnson's leadership. Maya's breath caught. What? Foundation? A center, Victor said, for early identification of gifted children in underserved communities. Children like Elijah. Children whose brilliance the world ignores. The room erupted. Cameras, screams, shock, sobs, questions. Chaos. Elijah looked up at his mother. Mom, is this real? Maya wiped his cheek gently. It's real, baby, she whispered. You've changed a man's life. And now, the world wants to change yours. But as the noise rose around them, as microphones and headlines fought for their story, Elijah squeezed her hand. Mom, he whispered. I don't want any of this. Maya leaned down, kissed his forehead, and whispered back, you won't face it alone. And somewhere at the back of the room, away from the lights, a quiet truth formed. This wasn't the end. This was the ignition. The moment a child's touch set the world on fire. By sunrise, the world had already chosen its side. What happened in that mansion? The arrogance, the mockery. In the moment a young black boy placed his hands on a millionaire's chest and stopped, Lifetime of Pain became the most talked about event on the planet. The video leaked first on a private forum. 10 minutes later, it hit social media. In 10 million views after that, it reached every corner of the internet. The headline that dominated timelines read, Heal me for $1 million. The boy who silenced a billionaire in seconds. Clips spread like wildfire. The millionaire laughing. The boy's calm eyes. The sudden collapse. The impossible recovery. People argued in comments. Is this real? Who is that boy? He didn't just heal him, he saved him. Outside the hospital where Benjamin Crane had been rushed mere hours before, reporters crowded the entrance like bees around a broken hive. Is it true? The boy stabilized your heart? Are you paying the $1 million you promised? Are you acknowledging the insult caught on camera? Benjamin, usually surrounded by security, now walked with his head bowed. He wasn't humiliated. He was humbled, and the world saw it. Inside his company, Crane Dynamics, the impact hit like an earthquake. His board of directors gathered in a glass conference room overlooking the city, the same city that was now mocking them, demanding accountability. Linda Sharp, the CFO, slammed a tablet onto the table. Benjamin, we're hemorrhaging reputation. Stockholders want answers. They're calling this the most disgraceful moment in our company's history. Another director whispered, we can't spin this. The video is everywhere, someone added. The boy's Nemizias, trending above the Super Bowl. Isaiah Williams, 12 years old, quiet, gentle. The son of a maid dismissed by wealth for being in the way. Suddenly the board door opened. Benjamin stood there without his security team, without the arrogance he was famous for, without excuses. He held a printed check. Exactly $1 million. I'm paying him, he said quietly. And that's only the beginning. The board stared. Benjamin cleared his throat. You all watched the video. I mocked a child. He saved my life. And the truth is, The company we built, it stands for everything opposite of what that moment showed. The room fell silent as he continued. This isn't PR damage control. This is course correction. Our culture changes today, starting with reparations and leadership that reflects compassion instead of contempt. He placed the check on the table. A symbol, a confession, a beginning. Reporters later captured Benjamin,
leaving headquarters not through the private garage but through the front doors, no car.
no entourage, just a man walking into the consequences he earned. The world kept watching. And somewhere, in a modest apartment across the city, Isaiah sat beside his mother, unaware that millions were chanting his name, calling him the boy who healed a millionaire and exposed a broken world. The world did not move slowly after that moment in the hospital. It moved like lightning, because once the millionaire collapsed into the wheelchair crying, shaking, overwhelmed, and once the boy touched his shoulder again, whispering it wasn't magic, it was you finally letting go, everything changed. A nurse had seen it. A doctor had seen it. And the hospital's AI-synced diagnostic system had seen it too, recording every microscopic shift in the man's nervous system as the boy laid his hand along the tension line between his neck and spine. The data didn't lie. It wasn't mystical. It wasn't supernatural. It was real, and because it was real, the world wanted answers. The first shockwave. The CEO's confession, the millionaire David Langford, a man who had built half the city's skyline, a man who had fired people with a shrug, a man who had once told a journalist empathy is for those who can't afford efficiency. It's called an emergency press conference. But this time, there was no limousine, no red carpet, no camera-ready smile. He arrived with swollen eyes and a humility that made even his harshest critics go silent. He stepped to the microphone, hands trembling not from pain, but from the weight of truth. I mocked a child, he began. I challenged him with a cruel joke. I offered $1 million to prove I couldn't be helped. The reporters leaned forward. No one interrupted. And that boy. David's voice cracked. That boy did something no doctor, no specialist, no surgery could do. He healed the part of me that money had destroyed. A gasp moved through the room like wind along tall grass. David lowered his head. I owe him more than money. I owe him humanity. The second shockwave. The doctors report 3 neurologists. To physiotherapists. 1 biomedical engineer. They studied the footage, the scans, the movement, the neuromuscular response, and the conclusion stunned them. The boy had found and corrected a neurological trigger point that specialists had missed for 9 years. A doctor explained it simply. He didn't perform a miracle. He performed a correction so precise that it would require a decade of training and ***, a gift no textbook can teach. Porters immediately asked. So is he. A prodigy. A genius. A healer? The doctor shook her head. He is something we don't have a word for yet. The third shockwave. The boy's mother speaks when the microphones were placed in front of her. The boy's mother didn't smile. She didn't cry. She didn't try to look impressive. She spoke gently, with the soft force of a woman who had raised strength inside struggle. My son doesn't heal people, she said. He listens to them. He feels what they feel. And when someone gives him permission, he gives it back. The world froze. A sentence like that doesn't come from theory. It comes from a life of seeing pain and refusing to look away from it. But how did he learn this? A journalist asked. She shrugged. He didn't learn it. He is it. The fourth shockwave. The boy takes the stage. They placed him on a small stool because the podium was too tall for him. The lights were harsh. The room was filled with hundreds of people, and the silence was heavy. He looked frightened. But then he saw his mother standing in the front row, and he breathed. I didn't fix him, the boy said softly. I just put back what he dropped. The room shook with murmurs. And what was that? A reporter asked gently. The boy tapped his own chest. Hope. Journalists wiped their eyes. Doctors lowered their clipboards. David Langford turned away from cameras because he could not hide his tears. The fifth shockwave. The $1 million question finally, after hours of testimony. Medical analysis and global attention. Someone asked the inevitable question. David, will you honor the $1 million you promised him? The room thinned. David stepped forward. I won't give him $1 million. A stunned silence swept through the room. I'm giving him 10. Chaos gasps, shouts, flashes of cameras. But the boy's mother shook her head. Instinctively, that's too much. She whispered. David looked at her. Gently. No amount of money repays what your son restored. But this isn't charity. It's investment in a future the world hasn't discovered yet. He then knelt in front of the boy. Hands clasped, eyes sincere. And if you'll allow me, he said, I'd like to build a center in your name. A place where people who need help can find it without being judged, priced, or ignored. The boy blinked. Can my mom help run it? He asked innocently. David laughed, full, humbled, grateful. She'll run all of it. The final shockwave. A world starts listening by nightfall. The story had reached millions of screens. People argued. People marveled. People cried. But one message rose above the noise. Sometimes genius looks like love in disguise. Sometimes healing comes from the hands we least expect. And sometimes the smallest voice reveals the world's biggest truth, that hope isn't lost. Just waiting for someone brave enough to touch it. And as the boy left the conference hall, hand in hand with his mother, the world finally understood. He didn't change the millionaire. He reminded him what being human was supposed to feel like. The sun dipped behind the hospitals, mirrored facade, turning it into a sheet of gold as the day's chaos finally settled. Nurses whispered in hallways. Doctors gathered in small circles, retelling the moment they themselves couldn't fully comprehend. Every TV in the waiting area replayed the same clip. Grainy phone footage taken by a janitor who'd been mopping the floor at the perfect time. A billionaire on the ground. A little black boy kneeling beside him. A hand on the man's chest. And a miracle that shouldn't have happened. The headline crawled across the bottom of the screen. Boy saves billionaire in 4 seconds. Doctors call IT impossible. But for Jordan, it never felt impossible. It felt natural. He sat quietly now at the edge of the fountain outside the hospital, feet barely touching the tiles beneath him. His mother Alana wrapped her coat around his shoulders. She'd cried enough tears for 10 lifetimes. In the last 24 hours, not tears of fear, not any more tears of realization. Her son wasn't ordinary, and she couldn't hide him from the world any longer. Inside, reporters swarmed the lobby. Security guards shouted over the crowd, trying to maintain order. Microphones flashed. Cameras blinked red. Every journalist wanted the same answer. How did he do it? Because the billionaire Victor Langston, founder of Langston Biotech, a man who owned private islands and skyscrapers, had collapsed during a board presentation. Just 24 hours earlier, a massive cardiac disruption. Instant ventricular standstill, a death sentence in almost every medical textbook. None of the doctors could revive him. Not with defibrillators. Not with adrenaline. Not with every advanced tool in the building. He was gone. But Jordan. Jordan walked forward, placed a hand on Victor's chest, whispered something no one heard, and Victor inhaled sharply, as if heaven had slammed a door and returned him to earth. All in for seconds, the room had erupted in screams. Half in terror, half in awe. Now Victor Langston stood in the doorway of the hospital entrance, watching the boy who brought him back. The billionaire's face wasn't the arrogant, mocking expression from earlier at the moment he'd laughed and offered Jordan $1 million to heal him. Now it was something else. Entirely humility, gratitude, fear, hope, all fighting for space. He approached. Slowly, Alana immediately stepped in front of Jordan, a mother's shield, unshakable. Victor raised both hands. I'm not here to hurt him, he said softly. I'm here to thank him. Jordan peeked around his mother's coat. Are you better? He asked. Victor knelt. A billionaire kneeling before a child. As long as I live, he said, I will never forget what you did. The wind blew through the courtyard as if the universe itself paused to listen. I felt gone, Victor whispered. Cold, empty, like falling into nothing. He inhaled shakily, and then, suddenly, warmth, a pull. Like someone grabbed my soul and said, "Not yet." Was that you? Jordan shrugged gently. I just wanted you to stay. Those simple words carried more power than any medical explanation. Alana placed her hands on her son's shoulders. He doesn't understand what he did, she said. He's only 10. Victor shook his head. No, he understands more than all of us. He reached inside his coat. Alana stiffened until she saw what he held. Not money. Not a contract. Not another test. A small velvet box. He opened it. Inside lay a foundation certificate. Embossed in gold foil. The Jordan Foundation, $50 million. Endowment for children with extraordinary GIFTs. Solana's knees nearly buckled. This is too much. We can't. Victor looked at her with surprising gentleness. You won't accept a gift, he said. So let's call it repayment. It's for a life returned to me. A second chance I never deserved. He turned to Jordan. And for the record, you earned that $1 million. He placed a check in the boy's hand. A full $1 million payable to Jordan Cole. Jordan blinked at it. Is this a lot? Alana laughed and cried at the same time. Yes, baby. It's a lot. Victor laughed through tears of his own. A man who had everything and realized none of it mattered more than the heartbeat this child restarted by nightfall. The world knew the boy's name. News vans lined the street. Drones hovered above the hospital. Across social media, Jordan trended under 1,000 variations. Hashtag boy healer. Hashtag for second miracle. Hashtag Jordan hug gift. Hashtag believe them possible, but Jordan didn't care for the cameras. He walked back into the hospital quietly, toward the pediatric ward. There, in the final room down the hall, lay a little girl named Amira. She'd been battling respiratory failure for a month. Jordan stepped inside. Her mother looked up. Exhausted, Jordan placed a hand on her forehead. Alana started to pull him back, but Amira suddenly took a deep, full breath. Machines steadied. Beeping normalized. Color returned to her cheeks. The nurse dropped her clipboard. The doctor ran in, froze, whispered impossible. Jordan smiled. She couldn't breathe, he said. So I helped. Word spread again, not through broadcasts, but through whispers and hospital corridors. A boy, who healed a gift no one could measure, explain, or control. Alana held him close as they walked toward the elevator. Baby, she whispered, what you have. It's bigger than all of us. Jordan nodded. I know. Mama, that's why we can't keep it to ourselves. And as the elevator doors closed, a final thought echoed in Alana's heart. This wasn't the end of the story. This was the beginning of a calling. If Jordan's story touched your heart and reminded you that miracles still walk among us, make sure to subscribe. Someone you know may need to believe in hope again. Share this story with them and tell me in the comments. Do you believe some gifts are meant to change the world?